Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. In this video, I'm continuing my series on the basics of reading tarot. And this episode is all about clarifying cards and, where necessary, clarifying spreads. So sometimes when you draw tarot cards, something just doesn't sit right with the cards that you get and you need to go deeper. And the purpose of this video is to teach you how you can do that. So let's begin. Now, quite often when people teach you how to read tarot cards, there will be situations where it is recommended that you draw an extra card to go with the rest of your spread to act as a clarifying card. As the name suggests, a clarifying card adds additional meaning, additional explanation to one of the cards of the spread, or perhaps the whole spread, if there is some part of the message that the cards are delivering that is unclear. Some people even say that you can draw more than one clarifying card in any given tarot spread. I will explain why I don't do that a bit later on in this video. But first of all, I will explain a bit about what I think of clarifying cards in general, if they should be used, if so, when they should be used. Well, I think that clarifying cards can be useful. However, I think that clarifying cards in a tarot spread need to be used very sparingly. And in fact, before you even get to the stage of drawing a clarifying card in a spread, ask yourself first, do I really need this extra card to know what this spread is telling me? There's really one of two reasons why people can want to draw a clarifying card in a tarot spread. One of the reasons why is because there really is some aspect of the message behind the cards that is unclear, that requires clarification. The other reason is that the person just doesn't like what they see and they want a different answer to the one that they've been provided with. So it's important to be honest with yourself and be honest about whether or not you're truly open to receiving the message that the cards are giving you. And if you're not, then perhaps that's the real reason why you're looking for a clarifying card. And perhaps before you pick up another card from the deck, you should just look at the cards again and see if there's some way that you can be more open to their message. Without denial, without fear of what the cards are saying, without a resistance to receiving their message. And often when a situation is uncertain and we feel we need a clarifying card, we just don't get the answer that we wanted about that uncertain situation. However, if it is an uncertain situation, there may well be more that you need to know. So to be sure, you can always draw a clarifying card to make sure that you've fully understood the message that you're meant to understand. And you've fully made sense of the ambiguity of the situation as it was before. And of course, another situation where a clarification card is imperative is if you do a reading and there's something the cards tell you which you just know isn't true or isn't quite right. In that situation, a clarifying card can be useful. Often it is not that the cards are wrong, but they are presenting the message in a way that is quite confusing at face value, or seems to be saying something different at face value. But when we contextualize the cards and look at their meaning more deeply, we can often find those seeming inconsistencies disappear when we understand the true meaning. And a clarifying card can help to highlight that true meaning out of the many possible interpretations of a card. Now, how many clarifying cards should you draw? Should you draw one? Should you draw two? Should you draw more? As many as you can? Well, as far as I'm concerned, you should only ever draw one. The tarot works because you get a random selection of cards. When you get a spread, you get a very simple set of symbols which are conveying a meaning to you when they're combined. And the cards have told you what they want to tell you at that moment. As soon as you add a clarifying card, you may add more context, more depth to the message, but you're also adding more complexity. And the more clarifying cards that you draw, ironically, the less clear the reading will be, because you will bring more confusion between symbols, more muddling of symbols as you do that, and the key message that was intended by the original spread will start to get lost. Keeping it simple is always a good key when you're dealing with the tarot. And another reason why just indefinitely drawing clarifying cards can be a problem is because if you do that, the law of synchronicity stops operating with the spread and the law of chance takes over instead. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, there's a very low likelihood of you getting a particular spread. And if you really believe in what you're doing with the tarot, then you must believe that there's a reason why you have that particular spread and no other. But as you start to add cards to that, perhaps there's a particular card you wanted to get, which you didn't get, or a particular type of card that you wanted to get. The more cards you draw, the more the odds of you drawing that card are likely. And so when you do eventually draw that card, it's not that you were meant to draw it, so to speak. It's just that it was a matter of time and a matter of simple odds that you were going to get that anyway. And so when you do that, what you're doing is you're really abusing the cards. You're making them say what you want them to say instead of what they're trying to tell you. You just need to accept that the cards quite often are going to tell you something that you don't want to hear. And that's how you know that they're working. So be open to the cards, allow them to tell you what they want to tell you, and by all means, draw a clarifying card if you want to. Perhaps you can draw 2 clarifying cards, but I tend to be very strict and draw a line just at 1, because I know the risk of drawing too many clarifying cards, and I know that the line has to be drawn somewhere. However, there are situations where you might need a more serious clarification, where just one more card to elucidate the meaning of the spread is not enough, because there's something that runs deeper in the spread which isn't quite right. It could be that the question wasn't quite complete in the way that it was asked, and it left out some information which the cards couldn't answer because the question was never posed. Sometimes people can do cards in the wrong spirit or frame of mind. If you go into a divination with the wrong intent, either a spirit of skepticism or cynicism or just a bad attitude about what to expect from your future, and a lot of negative assumptions, or not really taking the spread seriously because you already know what your futures are going to look like based on your own projections, then that's not the right mindset for the spread, and that's going to affect the result. It's going to affect the way that you draw the cards. That energy that you're bringing into it is going to disrupt the cards, and they're going to give you a reading that just doesn't make sense at all. So in that situation, when you get that kind of a spread, it is better to just do a new spread. Either the same question but with a better attitude, or if the root of the problem is with the way the question was framed, perhaps you need to do a new spread with a new supplementary question to get more clarity on the part of the answer in the cards that you don't understand or you don't think is complete. I did this recently, actually, and I wanted to use that as an example. So you'll recall, if you watched my previous videos on tarot, when I demonstrated a 2-card spread, and I asked the cards about a job that I was applying for and what the outcome would be if I got accepted and took the job versus didn't take the job. And the result that I got was very surprising to me. I got the world if I didn't accept, and if I did accept this new job, the outcome would be the 3 of Swords. Pain, suffering, heartbreak, etc. Now this result really surprised me, but I gracefully accepted what the cards were telling me and graciously accepted that perhaps my assumptions about this job being a fresh start were wrong. But the more that I sat with it, the more something didn't seem right about what the cards were telling me that night. And the reason why is not because of my own biases, but because all of the other signs that I had been given were pointing in the opposite direction. I mean, like, there seemed to be something really pushing me towards this job. The circumstances under which I started looking for it were very unusual and very serendipitous. When I got phone calls about the application process, they occurred during angel number times, such as 111. When I was leaving an interview with this particular institution, the time was 11:11 in the morning. So all of these angel numbers were appearing, all of these other signs were occurring, which were pointing me to work at this new organization. It was like you might as well have had neon signs flashing, saying, "This way." And so what this tarot spread was saying flew right in the face of all of the other things that I had divined. So in this instance, I felt that clarification was necessary. And I was thinking about what the reason could have been why I got a answer which was not quite right or surprising or incomplete in some way. And it was at this point that I realized that the way that I had phrased my question wasn't necessarily going to get me the complete answer that I wanted from the spread. See, I had asked for the cards to tell me about what would happen if I accepted a job offer for a position, when in fact what I had applied for, or was applying for, was a position in a job pool. It wasn't an individual job, but multiple job opportunities would arise from this one pool if my application to the pool was successful. And this led me to thinking, well, perhaps the answer to my question was warning me about one out of several positions that might arise if my application to this pool is successful. So I decided I would do a new reading. And in this new reading, I would do a 3-card spread, and each of the 3 cards would represent one of 3 positions that could come up in the future, and what would happen if I accepted each one. And the result was amazing. So I did the spread, and I asked the cards, what will happen if I get accepted into this pool, and then I accepted the very first job that is offered to me. And the card that I drew was this one, the Fool. And so this represents uncertainty, walking over the edge of the cliff into the unknown a little bit, taking a leap of faith, you might say, which is part of the haphazard footing that the Fool is on in this card. And so I was being told very clearly that if I took the first position that came up, it would be perhaps a good thing in the long run. It would be a new beginning, a fresh start, but there would be a lot of uncertainty in terms of how that would affect my current situation, and perhaps it would leave things unfinished. I then drew a second card, which represented if I turned down the first position I was offered, but took up the second position. And that card was the 9 of discs, or the 9 of pentacles. And what this represents is one's labours bearing fruit, and being able to enjoy the fruits of one's labour. It's really a card of financial success, and it's a card of the completion of something which is the end result of a long process. And so this was a card which was telling me that if I accepted the second position, I would be able to properly wind up everything that I was doing at my current position before stepping into the new position. And perhaps I would be financially better off as a result of making the transition at that time. Then I asked the cards, what would happen if I accept the third position that comes up in the pool? And would you know it? This is the card that I drew. The Three of Swords again, the very same that I had drawn in my initial reading about the job application. So what a clarification that was. The initial reading was correct, but it was only correct with regard to one of three offers that could have arisen in a particular period of time. And in that same period of time, the previous two offers would put me on a very different course if I accepted them. So it was a very good thing that I clarified the meaning of the spread, because that is the sort of detail which, when left out, completely changes the message that the cards are trying to give you. And this is a cautionary tale as well in being very specific. If you want a specific answer, to ask a specific question. So that's my video on clarifying cards and using a supplementary reading to go deeper into the initial question that you've asked the cards in a particular reading. I hope you found that useful. If you want to check out my other videos on tarot, I will leave the link to those videos in the description below. If you've got any comments or thoughts, please leave them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to support my work. See you next time.